If you've been scrolling through social media lately, you may have seen alarming posts claiming that green card laws are being completely overhauled, that lawful permanent residents could suddenly lose their status, or that ignoring some new rule could get you deported. Maybe you saw a viral video with an urgent warning in all caps, or a headline that made your heart skip a beat. If you're feeling anxious, confused, or even scared right now, I want you to take a deep breath, because you're not alone. Thousands of immigrants, green card holders, and their families are dealing with the exact same fears. The truth is, misinformation spreads faster than facts, and when it comes to your immigration status, your future, and your family's security, you deserve to know what's actually happening, not what someone on the internet said might happen. So in this video, we're going to separate fact from fiction, explain what has actually changed in U.S. green card law, what's just noise and rumors, and most importantly, what you need to do right now to protect yourself and your status. Let me start by addressing the elephant in the room. As of today, December 27, 2025, there has been no sweeping green card law overhaul that fundamentally changes the rights or obligations of lawful permanent residents in the United States. The core framework of green card law, the Immigration and Nationality Act, remains in place. Green card holders still have the right to live and work permanently in the United States, travel internationally with proper documentation, petition for certain family members, and eventually apply for U.S. citizenship if they meet eligibility requirements. These foundational rights have not been eliminated, suspended, or secretly changed overnight. So if you saw a post claiming that green cards are no longer valid, or that all permanent residents must reapply immediately, that information is false. However, and this is important, that doesn't mean nothing is happening in the immigration space. Immigration policy is constantly evolving. There are always discussions in Congress about reforming various aspects of the immigration system, including green card allocation, employment-based categories, family preference backlogs, and inadmissibility grounds. There are also administrative changes that happen regularly at agencies like U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, the Department of Homeland Security, and the State Department. Some of these changes affect processing times, documentation requirements, interview procedures, or eligibility criteria for certain benefits. But there's a huge difference between a proposed bill that hasn't passed, a draft regulation that's still being reviewed, a policy discussion that's happening in Washington, and an actual enforceable law that changes your status today. So what are people actually talking about when they mention a green card law overhaul? In most cases, the confusion comes from a mix of sources. First, there are ongoing legislative proposals related to reforming the employment-based green card system, particularly around country caps, priority dates, and the massive backlogs affecting applicants from countries like India and China. Some of these proposals have been discussed for years. They may reduce wait times for some, create new pathways for others, or adjust how green cards are allocated across different categories. But as of right now, none of these proposals have been signed into law. They're still in the discussion or drafting phase. Second, there are periodic updates to USCIS policy manuals, form instructions, or processing procedures. These updates can affect how certain applications are reviewed, what evidence is required, or how officers interpret eligibility. For example, USCIS might clarify how it evaluates public charge considerations, or update guidance on maintaining continuous residence for naturalization purposes. These are real changes, but they're not secret, and they're not designed to trap you. They're published on official government websites, and immigration attorneys stay updated on them constantly. Third, and this is where most of the panic comes from, there are viral social media posts, YouTube videos, and blog articles that take a grain of truth and blow it way out of proportion. Maybe there was a leaked draft memo, or a politician made a statement, or a court case was filed. These events get repackaged with alarming headlines like "Urgent Warning for All Green Card Holders" or "New Law Changes Everything." The problem is, a draft memo isn't law. A politician's statement isn't policy. A lawsuit filed doesn't mean the law has changed. U.S. immigration law doesn't change based on rumors, tweets, or viral posts. It changes through a formal legislative process that involves Congress passing a bill, the President signing it into law, or through the federal rulemaking process that includes public comment periods, legal reviews, and official publication in the Federal Register. Now let's talk about what it actually means to ignore something in immigration law, because this is where people get genuinely scared. If there is a real, enforceable legal requirement that applies to you as a green card holder, and you ignore it, yes, there can be serious consequences. For example, if you're required to file a change of address with USCIS within 10 days of moving and you don't do it, you could face fines or complications with future applications. If you're required to carry your green card with you at all times and present it when requested by immigration officials, failing to do so could result in penalties. If you abandon your permanent residence by staying outside the United States for too long, without proper documentation like a re-entry permit, you could lose your green card. If you commit certain crimes that make you removable under immigration law, you could face deportation proceedings. These are real rules with real consequences, and they've been in place for a long time. They haven't changed recently because of some secret overhaul. But here's what's not happening. You're not going to suddenly lose your green card because you didn't hear about some brand new rule that was announced yesterday and goes into effect tomorrow. Immigration law doesn't work that way. If there's a new requirement, it will be officially published. It will have an effective date that's usually months in the future, and there will be clear instructions on what you need to do. USCIS doesn't operate in the shadows. When there are major changes, they issue alerts, update their website, send notices to applicants, and communicate through official channels. So if the only place you're hearing about a major green card law change is through a random social media account with no official source, that's your first red flag. Let me also address something that causes a lot of unnecessary panic, and that's the difference between proposed changes and actual changes. Every year, multiple bills are introduced in Congress related to immigration. Some propose expanding green card availability. Others propose restricting it. Some propose eliminating country caps. Others propose adding new requirements. The vast majority of these bills never become law. They get introduced, they get debated, they sit in committee, and they go nowhere. But the moment a bill is introduced, headlines start circulating as if it's already law. People share articles saying, "Green card holders must now do this," when in reality, it's just a proposal that may never pass. This is why it's so important to look at the source of the information you're reading. Is it coming from USCIS.gov? Is it from an official Department of Homeland Security announcement? Is it from a licensed immigration attorney citing specific legal authority? Or is it coming from a blog, a social media influencer, or a website trying to get clicks? So what should you actually do right now if you're a green card holder or someone in the process of applying for permanent residence? First, make sure you're meeting all the existing requirements that have been in place for years. Keep your green card valid and renew it if it's expiring. File your change of address if you move. Don't stay outside the United States for extended periods without proper planning. Avoid committing crimes that could make you inadmissible or removable. File your taxes every year. If you're eligible for citizenship and you want the additional security and benefits it provides, seriously consider applying for naturalization. U.S. citizens have more protections than green card holders, and naturalization is one of the most powerful ways to secure your long-term status in the United States. Second, stay informed. But stay informed through the right channels. Bookmark official websites like USCIS.gov, the State Department's travel website, and the Department of Homeland Security's news page. Sign up for email alerts from USCIS if they offer them. Follow reputable immigration law organizations like the American Immigration Lawyers Association. If you have an immigration attorney, stay in touch with them and ask them about any changes that might affect your case. Don't rely on social media as your primary source of immigration information. Social media is great for connecting with communities and sharing experiences, but it's not a substitute for official legal guidance. Third, if you're unsure about something, don't guess and don't ignore it. Reach out to a licensed immigration attorney. Not every situation requires hiring a lawyer, but if you're confused about whether a new policy applies to you, whether you've done something that could jeopardize your status, or whether you should take action on something you heard about, a consultation with a qualified attorney can give you peace of mind. Immigration law is complex, and small mistakes can have big consequences. It's always better to ask and be sure than to assume and be wrong. Fourth, understand that delays and backlogs are not the same as law changes. Right now, USCIS is dealing with significant processing backlogs across almost every category of application and petition. Green card applications, work permit renewals, travel document requests, naturalization applications, they're all taking longer than they used to. This is frustrating, it's stressful, and it affects people's lives in real ways. But a delay is not a denial. A backlog is not a policy change. If your case is taking longer than expected, check the USCIS processing times page. Contact USCIS through official channels if you're outside normal processing times, and consider reaching out to your attorney if you have one. But don't panic and assume that a delay means something terrible is happening behind the scenes. Fifth, be especially cautious about anyone offering shortcuts, guarantees, or insider information about immigration processes. If someone claims they can get your green card approved faster than normal for a fee, if someone says they have a secret contact at USCIS, if someone guarantees you'll get approved no matter what, that's a red flag. Immigration fraud is a serious problem, and people prey on vulnerable immigrants who are desperate for answers. Only work with licensed attorneys or accredited representatives recognized by the Department of Justice. Check their credentials, read reviews, and make sure they're legitimate before giving them any money or personal information. Now I want to talk about something that often gets lost in all the noise. And that's the resilience of the U.S. immigration system. Yes, policies change. Yes, administrations have different priorities. Yes, there are debates and court cases and legislative battles. But the fundamental structure of U.S. immigration law has remained remarkably consistent over decades. Green cards have existed in various forms since the 1940s. The Immigration and Nationality Act that governs most of our current system was passed in 1952 and has been amended many times, but it's still the foundation. Lawful permanent residence is a well-established legal status with clear rights and clear obligations. It doesn't just disappear because of a headline or a rumor. That said, it's also true that immigration has become an increasingly politicized topic, and that can create real anxiety for immigrants and their families. It's understandable to feel uncertain when you hear politicians debating your future, or when you see news stories about enforcement actions, or when policies seem to change with each election. This is why knowledge is power. The more you understand about your rights, your obligations, and the actual legal process, the less vulnerable you are to misinformation and fear. You don't have to be an immigration lawyer, but you should know the basics of your own status and what's required to maintain it. Let me also say this. If you're here legally, if you've followed the rules, if you've been honest in your applications and interviews, you have nothing to fear from doing things the right way. The system isn't perfect, and it can be slow and frustrating, but it does work for millions of people every year. Green cards are approved, families are reunited, work permits are issued, people become citizens. It happens every single day. So don't let the noise and the panic rob you of hope or make you feel like your situation is hopeless. It's not. Finally, I want to address what to do if you realize you've actually made a mistake or overlooked something important. Maybe you forgot to file a change of address. Maybe you stayed outside the U.S. longer than you intended and you're worried about abandonment. Maybe you have an old conviction that you're not sure affects your status. The worst thing you can do is ignore it and hope it goes away. Immigration issues don't disappear on their own, and they tend to get worse the longer you wait. If you think there's a problem, talk to an immigration attorney as soon as possible. Many issues can be addressed or remedied if you deal with them proactively. Attorneys deal with complicated situations all the time, and they can help you understand your options and chart the best path forward. So to wrap this up, here's what you need to remember. There has been no secret green card law overhaul that changes everything overnight. The core rights and responsibilities of lawful permanent residents remain in place. Changes to immigration policy do happen, but they happen through official, transparent processes, not through viral social media posts. If there's a real change that affects you, you'll hear about it from official government sources, not just from random internet rumors. Stay informed through the right channels. Meet your existing obligations. Don't ignore real requirements, but don't panic over fake ones. Consult with licensed professionals when you're unsure. And remember that permanent residence and eventual citizenship offer the strongest protections and the most stability in an ever-changing immigration landscape. If this video helped clear up some confusion, if it gave you some peace of mind, or if you learned something valuable, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button for USA Immigration Today. We're here to give you accurate, reliable, up-to-date immigration information, without the fear-mongering and the clickbait. Turn on your notifications so you never miss an important update. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. Share it with friends, family members, co-workers, or anyone in your community who might be feeling anxious or confused about their immigration status. And please, leave a comment below. Let us know what topics you'd like us to cover next, what questions you have, or what rumors you've been hearing that you'd like us to fact-check. We're all in this together, and the more we share accurate information, the stronger and more informed our community becomes. Stay safe, stay informed, and remember, knowledge is your best protection against fear.